So it's time for me to hand over to Geoff Wood and Mick Butler from Northamptonshire Branch to take us through, over the next 40 minutes or so, the work that they've been doing on the Northampton Arm. So Geoff, Mick, over to you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. It's just worth saying good evening to everyone. And I'm surprised you've all got a vacancy in your diary to sort of log in and watch us. This was a presentation that we gave in autumn of last year to a thing that was organised in London. There's a few bits and pieces that have changed since then, but we'll just change them as we go through them. So we'll go off to the first photograph. This is of Lock 17 with many volunteers doing some grass cutting and strimming. And this really doesn't show the picture of when we first took it over in 2013, 2014, because that whole area was just covered in rough grass and brambles. So it took us a long, long time. And Mick, can you remember what that was like?
Yeah, well, if you can look in the distance there, you'll see the bramble hedge by the guy who's doing the mowing. Well, all that bramble was right up to more or less the lock itself, very thick, just like that. That all had to be cut down, and you'll see shortly another picture to the right of that, showing what we call the offside of that lock, how that's taken shape as well. But yeah, it took a lot of man hours to actually cut that down. And what you can see there is not a miniature stone henge. It is just timbers that were floating down in the canal that we managed to cut up and put up into small seats, like for people. So yeah, it's made it a really, really pleasant start to the canal.
We're going to talk a bit about the background now. The Northampton Arm was opened in 1815, and it replaced the tramway that was built over Blisworth Hill. The Blisworth Tunnel opened in 1805, so the tramway was surplus to requirements. The arm is about 4 3/4 miles long. It's got 17 locks. It runs from Gayton Junction down to Far Cotton, where it joins the river. Far Cotton is sometimes known as Cotton End, local dialect, and it has obviously witnessed many, many changes, the M1 motorway and then the A43 bypass. And when the bypass was built, there was a lot of campaigning from IWA Northampton and British Waterways in those days to get the road layout changed to move it further away from the canal. And the arm is a mixture of rural canal. It's very attractive at the Rosethorpe Flight. And then round about Lock 14, it drops into the urban areas. And I would say that over the years we've been involved with it, the actual urban part of the arm has become very much more attractive with new housing development that seems to have kept some of the unsavoury characters away. This is a photo of the downside, the riverside of Lock 17. And as Mick, you want to just give us a few words on that?
Yeah, well, where you can see the mooring bollards there, when we first arrived on site to see what it was all about, where you see those, well, you could not see those. We didn't even know they existed. And where you see the nice tree in leaf there, that was full of trees like that, animal shrubs, all on that lock area around that. If you've been down the arm, you'll know exactly what whereabouts I'm talking about. It's on the offside, but it's now a lovely little area. Well, as you can see, we've since planted in there, on that incline there, we've planted small snowdrops, bluebells, all sorts of things like that. that are now just coming to fruition. And we got the first showings this spring a little while ago. But we'll go more into that later on. Okay, Geoff?
Right, so we just want to, just bear with me a minute. Right, just want to talk about the arm adoption. The arm itself was a necessary evil. So if you wanted to come from the canal system to the river or the river to the canal system, you had no option but to come up or down the Northampton Arm. And round about 2012, 2013, when British Waterways turned into the Canal and River Trust, they were very, very keen to get some adoption groups going, and they had a very good volunteer coordinator in John Highmore and volunteer leader Miriam Linforth, who were very keen for us to adopt the arm. To start off with, we was a little bit apprehensive because it being such a big, big length of canal and all the infrastructure to take on. But we entered an agreement, and we thought to ourselves, we must be absolutely mad to do it, but we did. And then one of the first things we did was we did a walk down the arm, and we came up with a task list of the things we thought we could undertake. And really that's what got us going in the first place. And Mick, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that we took on was to create a task list, because when all of a sudden you go down onto the arm, at that time, 2013, you thought to yourself, well, what the hell are we let ourselves in for, like Geoff said. But when you can take a look and see what can be done, you make up a job list. And the early operations that were done was like litter picking, vegetation management, like it says, and infrastructure, painting of the locks and the lift bridges. In itself was no mean task. And as luck happened, we had quite a few volunteers came down and they said, well, let's get stuck into it. And that's what we've done. But prior to that, people would not even walk down the arm, let alone go down the arm on the boats. It was not a very nice place to be. But as you will see throughout the meeting tonight and the presentation, you'll see how it's changed. Thank you, Geoff.
Got a group of scouts from Duston. This was 2 years ago, doing some litter picking. This is down at Lock 13. And we walked the whole length of the arm on a Saturday, and they were scouts from around about 9 up to about 14. And they thoroughly enjoyed themselves. It was a nice day. I think everyone slept well that night after that sort of walk.
Yeah, I think one of the things you'll notice as we go through the presentation is that how many youngsters from various organisations and schools come along and enjoy themselves down here. And this, like Geoff said, this is just one picture showing you one group of children who come along, who we try to get involved, not just the children, but adults, various groups, as you'll see later on in the presentation, who come along and really enjoy themselves. Geoff?
Right, so we've got a bit of a map of the arm here. And if you start at Gayton Junction, which is at the bottom of the screen, that cutting there was originally to supply the wharf when the tramway was in operation. And Bridge 2, it's Bridge 2 because Bridge 1 was a swing bridge. It's no longer there. And then when the arm was built, the cutting from Gayton Junction was extended into Lock 1. And as you can see, you've got round about 12 locks we consider to be the Rotherthorpe flight. Then between locks 12 and 13, we've got the motorway bridge. Below lock 10, there is a lift bridge. And below lock 13, there is a lift bridge. And just out of interest, the lift bridge below lock 13 had a catastrophic failure the year before last, where the beams, lifting beams, rotted and broke. So we are engaged in a programme with the trust about having them replaced, and we may be thinking about using some money from the John Faulkner legacy to help fund it, but that's ongoing at the moment. Lock 14, there is a new housing development that's been there about 4 years, and that's vastly changed the area. And then the locks get further spaced out, the A45 road bridge, the railway line, and then from round about Bridge 14, that's Briar Hill, which is not so good part of Northampton, although it has improved, but you really are into the urban part of Northampton. And then down to Lock 17, which goes off onto the river. And Mick, anything to add to that?
No, I think it shows itself the whole length of it, actually, and it gives you a good outline as to the sort of distance that we've had to cover anyway.
It's probably worth saying about from round about Lock 14 how good the towpath is. Part of it they've used this where they shred old tyres and mix it with an aggregate and then bond it with a resin, and it really is good. It's, you know, both pedestrians and cyclists. Bit of a lock painting day. I think this was when we had a group from Union Lever come. They're based at Bedford, and they wanted a day out, so we painted locks 7 and 8. Nice day. Everyone enjoyed themselves, and they all got quite splattered with paint. If I remember that day, Mick, didn't they?
I did. Yeah. But everybody enjoyed themselves.
Yeah. Now you might recognise one of the characters who's on his knees. That's Mick, for those who don't know him. And it's quite good actually to see him doing some work.
Well, I've always been on my knees, Geoff, as you know, so it's not new to me.
So when we started off the arm adoption, we decided, as Mick said a bit before, to concentrate on Lock 17 because that's the first thing boaters will see coming off the river. As Mick said, it's been completely overgrown, and we had only had one task party a month, and mainly committee members turned up. And as it says here, if you didn't attend, he was up on a charge before the chairman. We did concentrate on the river end of the canal for the litter picking, and we obviously used emails and widened our appeal to try and get more and more volunteers. And then the first one was the 2nd of July 2013, and the first 5 task parties were around the bottom end of the canal with largest amount of litter collected. And to be honest, that is still quite the same now in terms of litter collection. Although we've got on top of it, there's still a lot to collect. Mick, would you want to say anything on that?
Well, I think the only thing I will say on this is that when we started our first task party, Geoff and myself decided that to keep these task parties going and to do what we wanted to do, we decided there would be no bosses on this group. So we're not looking at ourselves as bosses of the task parties. We are looking at ourselves, as a task party leader. And we don't ask anybody to do what we can't do ourselves, which is getting a little bit more daunting as you get a bit older, by the way. But we always said that we would not ask anybody to do what we can't do ourselves. We treat everybody exactly the same. They come and go as they want. And I think by doing it in this way, we've managed to keep hold of virtually everybody who started with us, and that they all enjoy themselves. And that is one of the biggest things, enjoying yourself at what you're doing. Geoff?
So this was part of the offside mural that we painted under the motorway bridge. It was very heavily graffitied over the years. So the first thing we did with a corporate group was overpaint the graffiti. We did the towpath side first with the history of Northampton, a mural, and then we did this one. What, last year? Was it last year, Mick? We did this 2000.
Yeah. This one was This was last year's project. The history of Northampton, the timeline was the year before project. But so as you can see, from 2013, where we was doing the vegetation, obviously we wanted to do more and more to enhance the canal itself. Now this bridge is over 70 metres long, and the murals both sides are taken up. There you go. You can see the length of it. There's no bend in it, by the way. That's just a fisheye camera, I think, isn't it? But it goes from one end of the bridge to the other, and that's the same on the other side. But the beauty of this is that it brightens up a really dark area, and it also shows that we have groups who want to come along and do this. Now, the artwork was taken on by the Blisworth art group, who come and sketched it all out. Some young ladies come and stretch this out, and which was very good of them. And most of the painting was done by Rothersaw Primary School, and they sent down children every day for 4 days, I think it was, Geoff. 4 days to paint all this, supervised by the Blisworth art group as well. And you can see that it's more like a picture book, a children's picture book. You know, nothing in, in big birds and little fish, all sorts of different things. But when you see it all, it goes from winter. It's called the Canal in the Seasons. And we take it through the seasons, winter, spring, autumn. And that has proved a very, very successful project. Thank you, Geoff.
Yeah, so in 2014, I should say, we had a bit of a change, because the chap who originally started off as the organiser lived at a distance away, and then he moved away, so it was impractical for him to carry on. So this was when Mick and myself actually started, and we decided to up it to 2 a month, the first Sunday and the third Tuesday in the month. And that allows people, who work to attend. It's also worth saying that really since then there are other adoption groups that have come in, the one at Stoke Bruin, the one at Braunston, who also run task parties. So we've all made sure that we run our task parties on different days, and we actually get quite a lot of cross-fertilisation where we all attend other people's task parties. So that's worked out quite well. One of the most important things that we came to the conclusion was that Northampton Arm is for all its users. It's not only just boaters, it's the dog walkers, the cyclists, the runners, the people, the children, and the people just out to enjoy themselves. So it's a really key statement that we want to make. We welcome any volunteers. They don't have to be IWA members. We have quite a large database, because not only have we got our membership database, but the volunteer days go on to the Trust website. We've used a volunteering organisation in Northampton to advertise it, and obviously IWA's website to advertise it. So that's really the way that we've got people to come along. As I think Mick has already said, the idea is to get everyone to enjoy themselves, and then they'll come back again. It's really good for your physical and mental health. I think just being by the water is good enough for that. And I think the last point is that we have formed this very, very close relationship with the Trust Bank staff team, and they're very appreciative of our work. But what it's allowed us to do is to have the relationship at the level where things can get done. You don't have to refer things up and wait for things to come back down the other side. So that is a real positive way of working. Mick, anything else to add on that?
No, I don't think so. No, we can carry on.
Bit of a painting group going on lock 2. Another nice day. So the ongoing adoption, one of the other work we carried out was the 14 locks with bypass weirs. Now, they hadn't been touched for, I don't know, some of them you couldn't even see. So we started this 2014, 2015. We've got a few photos coming up of what the bypass weirs look like now. Again, over the years, we've had some corporate days with Cummins, Power Systems, they're based at Daventry. Santander, who are generally based at Milton Keynes. Network Rail are also based at Milton Keynes, and Nationwide, which have been based in Northampton. And they really do enjoy themselves because it's a day out from the office, a bit of fresh air, a bit of team building for them. And the Santander one was a great one where we renewed this 70 metres of fencing over a 3-day period. And they also helped us with the graffiti over painting on the M1 bridge before we did the mural. And I think we've got a few photos of coming up of the handrail at Lock 1. And then Mick, going to talk to us about Bellway, about the Mosaic bench.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, okay. It says there that we have formed a good business with the Bellway, who sponsored the construction of the Mosaic bench on 17. That came about because we started doing these mosaic works, one upon the Sandy Station wall up at Gayton, and we said we wanted something down on the other, down by Lock 17. So we thought about putting this here bench on. You'll see that shortly as well. But because I had a good relationship with the Bellways, you may or may not know, I was in construction all my life, and I've got to know a lot of people in various large companies. And I actually knew the agent who was down on the construction site for Bellways. I went to speak to him about materials and also to see if they could sponsor us in the construction of this mosaic bench, which they kindly agreed to do. So you'll see shortly the bench that has been constructed out of mosaic. And that was, what was the guy's name, Geoff? Mosaic guy?
David. Can't remember the second name, Mick.
Anyway, we got this mosaic worker to look at what he could do with the bench in the way of doing pictures on there and what he could come up with, and you'll see shortly as to what he's come up with. Okay, Geoff.
Right, this is Lottie Clark. She is 9-year-old volunteer, comes with her mother Laura, and she was our Volunteer of the Year last year, and she received our Volunteer of the Year award, Shield. She's very, very, very keen. As being a young person, she really is keen about the environment and what we do to it, bad ways over the years. And this is the future of our branch and maybe the country as well. Mick?
Yeah, it wasn't just because she was a good-looking little girl who stole our hearts. This was showing you that the year before was a 80-year-old man. You may recall a guy called Roger Hasdell, who has since passed away. It was my father-in-law, actually. He won it the year before. And this year was young Lottie, and she got it through the work and commitment that Geoff said. A commitment to what she's doing was unbelievable. And she was a real gem, and everybody took to her, and everybody thought she was a worthy winner. Geoff?
Yep. Interpretation panels. We funded, this again through the John Faulkner legacy, we funded 3 interpretation panels, one at Lock 1, one at Lock 14, and then this one at Lock 17. This was the last one we put in, which was last year. I think we had to go up to, I think, about revision 8 before we got agreement on all 3 interpretation panels. They were designed and manufactured for us by Red Kite Environment, and they are really good lifespan on them, and they seem to be sort of taken interest by people. It explains quite a few facts and figures about the arm.
Mm. That's fine.
Anything to say on that?
No.
So looking forward, I mean, we've fallen into this pattern of vegetation management and litter picking in the winter months, lock painting, and lock 17 mowing area in the summer months. And with 17 locks, we try to paint 6 a year, and it gives us a 3-year cycle. And then in December, although we did it in January this year, I'll tell a lie, we have this group of regular volunteers. We do a walk down the arm from top to bottom so that we get everyone's view on what we should and shouldn't be doing. And then we just get a provisional list for the forthcoming year. And then we all end up in the Super Sausage for a great big full Monty breakfast at about 1 o'clock, Mick, don't we?
Yeah. That's one of the things that I think keeps them coming each year, is the fact that they know that when they do a walk down the arm with us, they get a good breakfast afterwards down at the Super Sausage. So there you go.
It's called bribery, isn't it? For those that are listening. Oh yeah, this is one of the bywashes, Mick, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, again, when we talked about things you can see and things you couldn't see before, well, actually, I think the trust said, "Listen, you're making a good job on the towpath side and the grass cutting and stuff like that. Would you like to concentrate your efforts on the bywashes?" And we're virtually saying, "Well, where are some of them? You can't see some of them, like, you know. Well, where you can see the rough area, like the rough ground on the outside of the bywashes, you might say, that was growth right over the bywash, and you could not see that bywash. And that doesn't go for that one. That goes for the majority of the bywashes all the way down the arm. You did not know they existed, and a lot of work went into clearing away all that vegetation, brambles, etc., little shrubs and trees, all that sort of stuff, and also clearing out the channel itself. So, yeah, a lot of work went into there, and you can see what the effort has brought us, a really good, clean bywash.
And if Paul Simpson is one of the delegates, he'll be very, very proud of that edge on the left-hand side. It's been edged perfectly. Yeah, it's just the outgoing side of the bywash, and that's at lock 10 with the only working lift bridge on the arm. This one carries a footpath across. We've got one at lift bridge at lock 5 that's pinned up in out position, and obviously the one at lock 13 that's failed. Right, Mick, want to say something about the nature trail?
Okay, so after we've done the original mosaic up on the Sally station, and then the bench down at lock 17, we came up with doing this here mosaic nature trail, and this was done with our secretary as well, I think, who instigated a lot of this. You may well know Sandy Morton, who is the wife of our chairperson, Bernard. And between Sandy, Geoff and myself, we organised to have these mosaics. The one there that you can see represents the history and everything of the canal. And each mosaic represents a different letter. You'll see a letter H on there. And you can see, I think you can most probably interpret that as being holly. And on the other side, there is a footbridge going over. And what it's done, we do one on each lock. So there are 17 of these panels. which gives you a walkway down with the family, and we've got these questionnaires that they fill in with the families or the children or whoever wants to do this here, and it comes out to a saying at the end of it. All the letters come out to a saying, but it's there for everybody to look at, everybody to see they can do. And if they send in their questionnaires at the end of it, and if they're right, then they get a certificate to say they're right. But after saying all that, again, this was a project that was taken on by school children. This time it was Delapre School, a school quite close, and they took all these panels. They are actually big paving slabs underneath that to the school. They had all the mosaics at the school, and they'd done the mosaic work at the school. Then we brought them away from the school onto the towpath and set them into, as you can see, set them into the verge there. They've all been concreted in, the blue bricks around it with the panels in situ there. And a lot of that work was done by one of our trusted volunteers, who was a bricklayer, Lawrence. I don't know if you're listening tonight, Lawrence, but there you go, well done. And so he done most of the inserting of these into the grounds. But as you can see, they've turned out very, very good, and one on each lot. And again, it's something else, not just vegetation clearing, not just litter picking, but another project that we felt that we could take on because we had the volunteers to do it.
And it's just worth saying, Mick, that we've got 3 boxes. We've got a box at lock 1, one at lock 14, and one at lock 17 with the forms in that people can use.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got our towpath at Wootton Brook.
Okay.
So Mick, give a few words on.
Yeah, okay, this area down by Wootton Brook, where you can see we're doing this here towpath. Well, across that bridge, that was, I think that's an inlet to the River Nen.
Yeah, that's Wootton Brook.
Some of you are underneath it.
Yeah, underneath it.
So underneath this spoil was just solid concrete, like obviously the base for the bridge. And there was about 12 inches of dirt on top, spoil, etc. And this was part of the towpath, which you really could not go down. You couldn't go on a bike because, and when it was wet, you'd sink in it. You couldn't walk because you'd come over your ankles. It was very bad. And so somebody says, well, do you think we could do something about it? Well, he says, well, why not? Let's do the towpath properly. And with the help of, what group was it, Geoff?
It was Cummins Power Systems.
Cummins, right. Okay, Cummins Power Systems from Daventry, who sponsored this here project for us. We had to get all the stone in, the timber work, and we had the Canal River Trust come down with their machine to take away all the spoil from the sides, and we actually laid a 75-metre run of towpath to get us out of all that mess across that bridge. And there you go. You can see there is more or less the finished object there. And in the distance there, it does carry on. You will see it's all rough again. And one of our projects for the future, we hope, is to carry on with this footpath for at least another maybe 100 metres. We'll do it in 2 hits, 1 year and then the next year, to obviously to make it suitable for everybody to walk on. And since it's been done, everybody said what a wonderful job it was. And we've done that in 4 days, Geoff?
Something like that, about 4 days, yeah.
So about 3 or 4 days. And we had continuous people working on it, even from the small estate that's by the side of us. And they come out giving us tea and coffee and biscuits, etc. And everybody joined in, and it made it a real successful project. Geoff?
Right. Oh, lock 17 in the springtime.
I haven't got an ink up, Geoff.
Sorry?
Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
That's it now, yeah.
Yeah. Lock 17 in the springtime. Yeah. Mick's a great gardener.
You'll see now that by the lock, where we showed you the very first pictures, and I said about how rough it was down there, you can see the brambles in the background by the arm lock, the lock of the arm of the lock, and that was like it was all over the area that you can see there. Clearing all that away, clearing the rubbish away. Again, Cummins and sponsored us for daffodils, narcissus, etc. So I thought, well, why not? Let's plant it up so we can get a good show in the spring of a bit of colour. So in the background there, I think there are about 600 daffodil bulbs been planted there. And a few under the posts and things like that, but going up the arm, all the way up, we planted daffodil trays on every lock going up through the 17 locks, and also in like what they call a memorial garden, which is further up the locks as well by lock 10. And I think we've got to about 2,500 to 3,000 daffodils being planted all the way up the arm, and that is to make it nice and bright in the springtime. Okay, Geoff?
So I think we've covered the highlights. Most of the highlights is the fact that we've done the Mosaic trial. We've done the overpainted the graffiti and the mural, the interpretation panels, and towpath. And I think it's quite important to say here that the funding, you know, the John Faulkner legacy was very, very important, and the funding from Cummins Power System was really important. It allows you to do that sort of thing. And we did have some help from the parish council, Hunsbury Parish Council.
That's right.
We got a couple of photos of the fence that we did up at Lock 1 with Santander. They originally said about bringing 20 people, and I said to them, "Oh, that's quite a lot to bring, you know, on one day. Maybe we could have 3 days or 2 days, 10 or something like that." They said, "No, we want 20 people for 3 days." So we then sort of got into gear and said, right, we can do this fence. And yeah, they really enjoyed it. And that's more or less the sort of finished view. Lovely view across Rosethorpe Valley from Lock 1. Fence nice and tidy now, although we did have a bit of a problem with the cattle in the field because they would come and rub up against it, and they started to knock the middle rail down, Mick, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah. So we put the netting up, we put the fencing up on the outside. Yeah.
So again, over the years, the further highlights over the years, we also do some task parties down on the river at the town moorings in Northampton to keep the area tidy. We have started to form some small 2-man teams to do things like anti-vandal lock, seal marking, anti-slip tread, painting outside of task party days, because they can be sort of done like that. We're the 10,000 hours, we're now at 12,000 hours we've just broken through. So we're doing quite well. And again, we would like to build relationships with the local community and encourage all the users to come and help. And we do get inquiries from people who are walking up and down the towpath to come and help, and they do. It's a gate and sanitation station, one of the earliest jobs we did. I mean, that was looking a bit shabby. It's on the far wall that we've got the mural at Gayton. And I think this is when we had Santander here for the day, Mick, wasn't it? I think this one.
Yeah, to help clear up, and we got all the moss and the vegetation off of the deck there, and painted up all the sanitation itself. Yeah.
And where the boat's in the background, that's the main line So Braunston to the right and Stoke Ruin to the left. Oh, there's your bench, Mick.
Okay, that's the bench that Bellway sponsored us for. It's got on there, what it does, you can't see it really because the legs are in the way. It's the Northampton Arm celebration from celebrating 200 years of the Arm. I can't ask them to say move your legs because I want to see it all. But on the back of the bench is the rows and castles, etc. You know, all different mosaic work from from this artist, how he produced it all. And this was all put together. We built it all, and the mosaic was done by volunteers. We even had some council people down to help do the mosaic, and various other people who came down to do the mosaic. And it's been there now for some time, 15, so that was nearly 5 years that's been done now. And in fairness, there's never been any damage to it, and it's always been in good condition. And there's a plaque on the top of it that says about Bellway sponsoring the bench. So yeah, that's the bench, and that is just overlooking the canal by Lock 17.
Yeah, one thing to talk about briefly is the health and safety aspect of it. Is that we obviously want our volunteers to come along, enjoy themselves, and not get hurt. So we're quite keen that everyone works safely. We've got risk assessments and method statements for all the jobs we do. We've divided our jobs into a traffic light system of green, amber, and red. So the green ones were okay to do. We're a self-supervising group. The amber ones, we would need some input from the trust, maybe things like scaffolding, as you saw on the sanitation station. And the red ones, well, they're a no-go with lots of talk to the trust whether we can actually do them. We have this thing about young people that we don't have young people under the age of 18 unless they're accompanied by their guardian or parent. And any tools that we use, that we have to be assessed by the trust, and they have done a lot of training over the years. Most people are okay on strimmers and mowers, hand tools, and one or two people on chainsaws and pole saws. So they are very, very good with their training. We've more or less come to the end of our presentation. We've got some contact details here if anyone wants to know anything in the future. And I think one brief word we wanted to say is how we're going to restart. We've cancelled all our task parties until the end of June. We don't know whether we can restart them because there'll be guidance from head office and from the trust. And it's what sorts of things we're going to then find. We know, for instance, that down at Lock 17, the grass will be up round our ears by the end of June. We've had a recent problem with 2 boats down there leaving lots of rubbish that need to be addressed. Maybe the trust will deal with that. But I think we're going to have our hands full whenever we can start. And I'm sure there will be some volunteers that may be a bit apprehensive of coming out again and mixing with people. It depends on what sort of guidance we're going to get. But I think that's a thing for the future. So I think, Paul, it's back to you.
I think, well, before you do that, Geoff, I think I'd like you to just mention of the meeting that we had from the group who came down from, was it near Rickmansworth?
Oh, the London group, yeah.
Taken on board all what we've done, and they came down for the day on one of our work parties, and I think to start up their own group. Could you just mention that, Geoff, please?
Yeah, well, they want to do some work on the handwheel flight. For those who don't know, it's down the bottom end of the Grand Union in London. And in fact, I think their first task party was scheduled for the 9th of April, and that's now cancelled, obviously. So their programme is going to be delayed. but they were just they just wanted to see how we did it, and they went away with some good ideas on how they're going to interpret it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Great.
Paul,
Well, Geoff, Mick, thank you very, very much for that. We've had a lot of questions on the way through, and even if we hadn't had a lot of questions posed in the Q&A, I've certainly written some down. But let's race through these questions now, and you will also be pleased to know that Paul Simpson is on the call tonight. So I've been chatting to him as we've been going through. So I'm looking out to see if he's going to give you any awkward questions. So I just want to I'll probably just take these mainly in the order that they came in. So a opening question was, how did you actually get rid of all the brambles, trees, and the sort of junk that you had? Because it must be quite a logistical exercise to plan these things.
Yeah, it is. I mean, to start off with, we piled all the cuttings over on the rough part of the ground, the ground surround, and we actually moved that back over time. And we did have a couple of bonfires down there to get rid of some of the vegetation. Yeah. But so much of it you couldn't burn. We had to take it in bags. We had to bring it across the lock. We brought a vehicle round. The trust brought a vehicle round, and that's the way we get rid of the stuff now. Is that we take it to a local collection point, and the trust come along and take it away for us. Great.
Well, it certainly sounds like you've got a really positive relationship with the trust, and if we've got time, I'll touch on that in a little bit more. So you touched on the challenges of health and safety. So I'm just keen to talk about, like you talked about some of the red jobs. You dealt with some of the clarity in terms of you've had plenty of training and things like that. But are there any other red jobs you'd like to touch, that you'd like to deal with?
Yeah, we've got bridge 14 that needs to be repointed.
Right.
The brickwork, there needs to be some repair work to be done on it, and a lot of the brickwork to be repointed. Now that's definitely a red job because of the access to it and the scaffolding. Yeah. And we've had Phil Emery, the Trust Heritage guy, come and have a look at it with us. So we know what we've got to do, but it's just then a matter of planning it in to start doing it.
Yeah, and health and safety is a challenge as we look right across the waterways. Obviously, I do quite a bit with work, and there's a real focus on that. Do you have any key challenges on health and safety? Have there been any sort of situations you think, right, we need a bit more training there, or have you been able to suggest areas for training when you're working with the trust?
I think one of the dangers we have to talk about health and safety is people's enthusiasm. Yeah. And there's a difference between when you're in paid work, yeah, to when you're doing something that you've come along to enjoy doing. And so you sometimes have to just rein people back with their enthusiasm and make sure that no shortcuts are taken. Yeah. In terms of training, where the trust are very good is if you can identify a piece of kit that you think might make your job better and you need some training on it, they will arrange it. So we've done whacker plate training, mowers, strimmers, as I said, pole saws, chainsaws, chippers. I mean, the list is endless, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, as I was saying, the relationship with the trust is good. Do you get Canal and River Trust funding, or are you entirely dependent on legacy income and sponsorship?
The funding we get from the trust is the materials.
Yeah.
So paint, wood, cement, bricks that come from the trust. As a branch, we have quite a bit of income ourselves because we get income from advertising in Endeavour. So we're quite a healthy branch financially. So some of that money goes to tea and coffee and all those sorts of things that you require to support a volunteer organisation in a year. But the big money has come from the Santanders, the Cummins, and the legacies.
So in terms of the arm itself, is there any prospect of it being converted to a wide beam canal?
I think only if there was about £50 million or whatever.
Oh, I was going to say the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I mean, it was built. It was built as a narrow canal. One, because to save money, in 1810 when it started, and also because of water.
Right. Yeah.
Water losses. That's why it was built as a narrow canal. Well, there's no back pumping facilities on the arm. It comes off the Weedon Pound, which is 20 miles long.
Yeah.
But I can't see it ever being converted to wide beam dimensions. It would cost a phenomenal amount of money.
So talking about money, you do seem to do quite well in getting companies involved. Maybe there's a bit of funding there. Definitely, it sounds like there's plenty of volunteering, giving volunteers that turn up. So how have you managed to do that? What tips have you got for some of the other branches from around the IWA world that are on the call tonight?
Well, I think again,
nice talk.
Yeah. I think that again, you start off from a reasonable platform because you've got the membership base in your area.
Yeah.
And then the contacts we have had then come via the IWA website for volunteering.
Yeah.
It comes from the Trust's website for volunteering, and then word spreads round. The grapevine kicks in, and that's where you get the interest from.
But I think one of the things, Geoff, is that you need to build up a good relationship with those companies.
Yeah.
Once you build up a good relationship with those companies, they tend to want to come back and also come back with a bit of financial help as well. That's how Cummins work. And now every year they come back and say, well, we can afford to do this, we can afford to do that. What work have you got us to do? They love coming, onto the arm and working with us. They come regular, and also building up this relationship with those companies, and a little bit of, like I said, the Bellway project. That was a case of really, who I knew to go to, and if you do know people to go to, that's another way. Yeah.
Great. So, in terms of general use of the arm, can you comment on mooring, particularly at the on the arm at the Northampton end, and what's the traffic like to and from the Nen? Is there a fair bit?
There's about 500 boat movements a year, Paul,
okay.
And of course it is a link between the canal system and the river, and that's why it wasn't what word do I use? It wasn't liked very much because you had to do it.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of mooring, there's definitely mooring up at Gayton Junction. Once you get into the flight, the Rotherthorpe flight, there's little or no mooring, and you wouldn't want to moor in Lock Flight anyway. There's a bit of mooring between 12 and Locks 13. And then once you get down into Northampton itself, before Lock 17, there's some nice moorings in front of the modern flats. That's quite good. And of course, if you go down to the river, you've got the town moorings under South Bridge. And if you want to pay £10, you can moor in Northampton Marina, which is very good.
Very good. And is traffic increasing?
No, I don't think it is, because if you look at the visitor numbers to the river, there's been a sort of general slow decline. And all about the costing, whether you're going to have a gold license, whether you're going to pay, a fee. I think we went down in 2017 for a fortnight, and that was about £140 for a 60-foot boat.
Right.
So it is, it is a means to an end. The arm,
Yeah.
you've got to get from one to the other. But it's not in bad condition now compared with how it was.
Very good. Now here's a controversial one. Where does the nen become the neen?
Peterborough, I believe.
No, Thrapston.
Thrapston, is it? Right.
Thrapston.
So there's two people given two answers.
Yeah,
and I
I'm not
know
even from Northampton, so
I'm pretty
Jeff's
sure.
not from Jeff's not from round here, so he weren't quite sure. But no, the nen becomes the neen as you go through Thrapston.
Well, it's certainly one of the most controversial questions I've heard asked on anything to do with the waterways. Is you could get a lot of answers on that one, but that's a good answer then, Mick.
Paul, I actually looked at a book today. I was looking at a book today about old Northampton, and it had a map in there going back to 1800. And I think the way you spell it now, and the way I think that the nen is right, because it's spelt N-E-N-E. Okay, so you can pronounce it nen or neen. Yeah. But in the 1800s, the River Nen was spelt N-A-N-N.
Okay. Well,
it says to me, Nen.
It's good. Yeah, it's good to get a bit of local knowledge on that. So one of the things I love most is when IWA branches work together. And you mentioned the fact that the West London branch had come up. I think that sort of initiative is really, really positive, because there's always going to be one branch, one or more branches just a few steps ahead of another, and being able to share that information and share that experience, I'm sure was really good. And I know that that Roger Still from West London Branch is on the call tonight. How did you arrange that, and what would you again recommend to other branches that are looking to work with others around the IWA world?
Mick, you want to do that?
You can do that, Geoff.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, Roger contacted, I'm sure he contacted me to start off with, and we had a chat on the phone. And then I saw him at the parliamentary in when was that? In January, was it?
January, yeah.
And then what we arranged is that Roger and his and Ray and the IWA technical guy, I can't remember his name, they would come up to one of our work parties, our task parties, and just see how we worked. So that's what we did. We spent a couple of hours on one of our task parties, then we went off for some lunch, and we just explained on what we did. Roger took loads of notes, and in fact I talked to him this afternoon just to check everything was okay, and that's how we worked that one. So anyone else wants to do it, they're more than welcome.
Great. And on that sort of note, have you ever used any of the word groups? I've got a question here from one of the London Worgies to say they're pretty good at laying towpath and scrub bashing and a few bonfires, but
no, we haven't. No, we haven't. That's another thing we can definitely consider, isn't it? We can definitely consider that. Good.
Well, I'll certainly mention that to the Worgie teams. And so I'm conscious that we're just a little bit over time, but just one last question, and I want to round it off because Paul Simpson's asked the question. And so he was mentioning the importance of the tools and equipment that are stored at Gayton. I think he's suggesting that's quite a useful thing for you.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. If we go back to the very, very early days, then Miriam was the volunteer leader. She would turn up with a van, the back doors would be flung open, and then out would come these tools, and we'd do a task part back in the van at the end of the job. And then once we became self-supervising, we had a small store at Gayton, and then Mick and myself would then have to put stuff in our cars, and that really got sort of quite difficult in the end, because there was more and more stuff. And then we've employed a local sort of man in the van type arrangement that does all our transport for us. And our storage at Gayton has increased and improved, and we've got a very, very good storage operation there now. Everything in its place and a place for everything. So that works a treat.
Great. Well, look, that's the whole story sounds really one of great success, and I'd like to wrap things up now just by saying a big thank you, Geoff, to you and to Mick for sharing those experiences and those thoughts with us tonight. We've got a lot to learn from you guys and all the work that you've done, because I know that there's so many other people coming behind you elsewhere across the country, and being able to hear and be inspired by the work that you've done, I think will give a lot of people a lot of encouragement. So thank you so much for your words tonight.